Thank you for joining us here. Your keynote talk was amazing. You are doing data science in a very kind of non-traditional tech industry, you know, the news and the media. Can you tell us a bit more about can you give some advice to someone who's seeking a data science career in one of these unorthodox tech industries?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I guess everywhere is going to have a need for data and data science and insights. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions, I think, in the data science space at the moment is that you can only do data science or machine learning at a tech company, and tech is now very, I think everybody's trying to reinvent themselves in a digital or technical way. But the reality is that data science, machine learning is just another tool in the box, much like software engineering or infrastructure, that you wouldn't go about building out your organization without some infrastructure, without some software engineering, no matter what you're doing. And it's in the same way now that we can start to think about data science, machine learning. I think it's really exciting time for us that you can kind of, it's getting a lot more democratized, that the tooling and the capabilities that we have mean that we can use data science across a variety of different industries. I think if you are looking to get into an organization or a part of the industry that perhaps isn't been traditionally thought of as somewhere that you might apply data science historically, I think it's about really assessing that organization's data maturity before you kind of get into it. So certainly in the news media space, particularly if you look at the Financial Times and their competitors, the reason why Financial Times has such a thriving and successful data science team is because we have a very, very high data maturity. And that's for a combination of reasons. Firstly, that we've been a subscriptions business for a very long time. So we've asked customers, whether they be B2C or B2B customers, to actually subscribe and have kind of a contract with the Financial Times, certainly the part of the newspaper element and the digital newspaper element of our business. And so therefore we've been able to collect a lot of data on people, and we've been able to track people. And not only are we able to track, we're also able to actually map that back to the customer. And we also are very consistent in the terms of our, because the newspaper itself is very committed to our fair, transparent and independent approach to its news journalism, we also apply that in the way that we use our data. So we're very, very conscious about our ethics and about our compliance and our governance. And so what that means is that we have this great data maturity where we've invested very heavily in making sure that we have the right data warehouse and data architectures, coupled with very good kind of ethics around the way that we want to use data and make sure that we're not doing anything around kind of a big brother is watching you kind of scenario for our customers. And making sure that we're building the right things for our customers, actually things they want to use. Like, so people don't want to be, when they're reading the news, in an echo chamber. So they don't want to be recommended an article that's really, really similar to what they're reading at the moment. So we've built things in data science like breadth of reading. So which is all about like, what are you reading at the moment and what would inspire you to read very differently, rather than it kind of encouraging that echo chamber. And that's based on some of our user research that we've done. And so my encouragement to somebody that's trying to get into this field, and what I'm trying to say is, before you kind of plunge in head first, is really assess that company in terms of what their data journey is like. Are they very much on that early entry where they've not really got any data warehouse or data platform capability? Or at the very late stage where they have a brilliant data maturity, now they're looking for kind of the icing on the cake, or as we say at the FT, the cannon off of the ship rather than the cannon off of the canoe. And so the AI and machine learning is very much that cannon of like, oh, amazing insight, fantastic prescriptive and predictive analytics, that's all value generating. And if you don't have the right infrastructure, so the right ship, if you're doing that for the canoe, it's going to fail. So assessing whether or not the company is actually ready for data science should be a big part of like your evaluation about whether or not you want to go into that particular business within an industry. And I'd say that where we are today is that it's not now about industry, it's more about individual businesses. So certain businesses in particular areas, so the telecom space is a very interesting one where there are some amazing organizations in doing things with a digital reinvention of themselves, right through to organizations that still haven't really successfully landed a digital transformation strategy. So a lot of their data is still not being maintained and handled correctly in terms of infrastructure, and therefore putting ethics and governance on top of that before you do data science is quite difficult. So you'll be stuck kind of trying to just do a lot of piecing together data rather than actually being able to drive the valuable insights. So I think really thinking about what it is that you want to achieve is really important when you look to these companies that perhaps haven't done data science in the past.
Yeah, that's completely true. The thing about the individual company is something that really rings true. It's not about the industry anymore, because all industries are evolving and we all have this digital transformation happening. It's actually about the particular individual businesses and how they're and where they are in the phase of digital transformation. But another challenge of these businesses is keeping their ethos intact. And there's always this balancing act between the business vision and what the customers and what your clients and users expect. What can we as data scientists, and how can we use data science to kind of empower ourselves to be in control of this process and to manage these expectations kind of correctly?
That's really tough, isn't it? I think that's a reality, right? Is it like if we all had the answers to that, I think we would be in a much better place. Unfortunately, I think what's happened a little bit in our field is that the hype around AI and machine learning has kind of run away before actually the capability has matured enough to justify some of the hype. And so we're in this scenario where we're kind of playing chase up, and practitioners in the industry have kind of been dumped with the kind of the short straw, unfortunately, which is like, oh, well, you're left with this mess that everybody expects, AI and machine learning to change their businesses. And the reality is that actually we're still kind of figuring it all out and knowing what, right from wrong in our world. So when it comes to ethos, a lot of the time, right, we're playing, as you said, against kind of the commercial aspirations of our business versus like what we, the ethos of us and our moral compasses as data scientists. There's a few really practical things that you can do. So there is you can sign up to become a advocate of the ethics, principles of ethics in data science. So if you just Google principles of ethics in data science, is an open source kind of document which states out 10 different principles around kind of the ethics and how you're going to be a steward in the data science industry. And you can kind of have a read of that and have a think about how maybe you might apply some of that to your business. The other things that you can start to do is to kind of scrutinize exactly why your business has taken on data science. Now, generally, it's for commercial gains, right? Because we work in a capitalist society for the most part. Most of us in the Western world are under some kind of business that is hoping to do well commercially. And I think what you can do is you can ask your business, well, what are your KPIs? Like, what are the metrics that you're assessing yourselves to do against? And hopefully, most businesses have some sensible kind of KPIs that are not revenue, but are inherent of revenue generating. So what I mean by that is, at the FT, it's so many digital subscribers, and then that was our one a few years ago. Now we're actually on to quality of customers, so the quality of those 1 million that we want, because we want them to be value generating customers. So a lot of people talk now about lifetime value in kind of the subscriptions world. So I think looking to the business that you're a part of and the metrics that they are using to both, assess the success of the business and the commerciality of the business will go a long way to being able to understand the actual ethos of your business. If your business, and I think we've all been guilty at times of working for places like this, where the ethos of the business is we want to be a $1 billion company in 2 years' time. I think you have to have a little think about, well, what does that mean for me as a data scientist in terms of my morals and the types of things that I'm going to build? I'm not saying don't work for those organizations. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that you may have to make some quite difficult decisions in your journey when you're building machine learning around whether or not you might have to end up doing some kind of snooping on customers that actually maybe they hadn't quite anticipated when they signed up to GDPR compliance, and actually there might be certain things that sit uncomfortably with you. Now, I'm not saying all companies that want to be $1 million business in 2 years' time are doing, anti-ethical things. That's not what I'm implying. But I think you just have to have a think about, well, what is going hand in hand with this commerciality? What KPIs and metrics will I be judged against in terms of how successful the things that I create are? And hopefully those things aren't, whilst they will have a proxy to correlate to revenue, they're not directly a revenue-related metric. So that would be my advice.
I would like to kind of expand on some, we've talked about the ethos, but also some data science projects and how we as data scientists can approach businesses to kind of help them ease into this data science and AI things that they're not kind of comfortable and they haven't really had experience with. Should we have this role of proposing the businesses how they should use this, or should we take a more kind of passive approach and just listen to their needs and then kind of make our product?
It's most definitely the second. I think, if you're opening your laptop and you're starting tech first, it's going to be a very difficult situation to then get the operational investment and the actual use of whatever you build operationally into your business. What you need to really start with is what are the business challenges, opportunities, and problems that people are facing today, and where does machine learning and data science answer some of those problems? And then that's where you can start from. So I think, the age-old kind of term now that, good data scientists are good problem solvers. I think that's where we have to start is what is, that user research of what is whoever the user is, whether it be like, a B2C customer at the end of a journey or some internal clients within your own business, like a marketing department or a finance department. What are their challenges? What are they facing into? And then, so problem first, tech later, and 9 times out of 10, some of those problems are not going to need machine learning. And in fact, a very simple kind of maybe just a basic, algorithm will actually solve what they need in terms of just some kind of binary decision logic, which is, do this, then do this, or some kind of decision tree. In fact, actually, most of the situations where you need machine learning are much more rare. You need some kind of automated process before you can go in and optimize it with machine learning. So I think definitely the very much of the second. I think there may be scenarios where some of the first may be needed in terms of going in and saying, oh, this might be the right approach. But I think those will be in much more kind of already data transformed organizations where, you might be working much more in a kind of a research environment. So if you're trying to kind of poke at kind of the norms, so maybe you're kind of in image recognition and you're doing something around self-driving cars, those kind of spaces, certainly like we already have established our business problem, right? So you're going in and you're trying to create, very much new, innovation and R&D. And in that situation, you might be a little bit more tech first, but that's because the problem is already very well defined.
Data science is kind of like this industry, as you mentioned in your talk, is relatively new. We're still kind of feeling out what's working and what's not. And one thing I saw in your talk that you kind of mentioned, and it kind of gives me this notion that data scientists, when they kind of do the project, they analyze the data, they deploy the project, they kind of done with it. And you said that we borrowed from the software development industry. We borrowed this notion that we should start kind of reiterating and constantly maintaining our project. Why is it in our industry that we're not putting more emphasis on maintenance of projects?
Yeah, great question, and thanks for observing my talk so diligently. You picked up on one of the most important things I think that I'm starting to recognize. I'm going to put my hands up. I'm guilty of this, right? When I look at my project list of what my team should be working on, I'm pretty bad at putting resource onto things that we've already created and saying, right, we need to maintain that. And that's because actually the maintenance is still kind of a bit unknown. Like sometimes you're going to need somebody hands-on, like rebuilding something. Sometimes you're just going to need like observability of like, okay, is this doing the right or wrong thing? And I think it's because we're just not very good at it yet, because it's still so new. Like we're not really good at maintaining because we're kind of still figuring out the practice. Again, continuous like monitoring of our applications of data science like products and services is still really, really early on. We're only just starting to see kind of model observability be an actual like field where, you know, and what I mean by model observability is once you've deployed something into an ecosystem, then what happens to that? Like, do we know if something's gone wrong? Do we know if the model's outputting bad results or non-performant results? Do we know if it's actually like been reinforced to learn something poor, like we have with, you know, that Twitter bot that everybody went and wrote abusive language to it, and it kind of reinforced. So eventually it became kind of a white supremacist voice, and everybody was mortified by this evil Twitter bot agent, and they had to take it offline. That kind of, this whole world of like model observability, you know, the immediate reaction is, oh, just take it offline, you know, because how are we going to fix this thing? Because everybody's like corrupted it. And I think it's just because we're not very good at it yet. So I think it's more to do with the fact that because there's limited tools for us to do it easily, I think we all just kind of want to avoid it and just think, oh, we've built the thing, it's fine, you know, like let's just put it in, you know, someone will use it, someone will get value. Rather than practically thinking, and let's move on. And I think let's move on to the next thing. And I think as well, like the issue with the data science space is still that we've got a lot of people coming in from the new to the field, whether they be a graduate or they're doing some kind of career transition. And we've still got this this legacy of like data science is the sexy job, right? But the reality is that, yeah, it's going to be a lot of maintenance. It's going to be, you know, but it's going to be a lot of looking at what other people have built in terms of predictive models and looking to rebuild them and build them better and bring in new sources of data. Not many people want to do that, right? We've had that happen a little bit internally at the Financial Times, so speaking openly. You know, we've had a couple of models where we've built, you know, it's taken a couple of years for us to build them. No one wants to work on it after 2 years. Yeah, they want to work on the next new data science sexy thing. And so I think we're kind of just challenged in our industry at the moment that people really want to work on the fun new, like the latest, you know, image recognition or the latest NLP problem. And then once they've created that, it's like, oh, right, okay, on to the next best thing. Let me do some time series now, and just learning all the tools of the trade rather than actually being practical about, yeah, actually, I've built this thing, let me like maintain it. And I think coupled with that, you know, we do have a big issue in the data science space of just retaining staff. I think there's a lot to do with the fact that people come into, you know, organizations, they stay with them 1.5 years if we're lucky, and then move on to the next role. And I'm not saying, you know, that's where then good documentation has to come in because somebody else has to maintain that, but no one wants to come into a new organization and be told, oh, you're going to maintain this thing that somebody else built. Oh, that's my day job now. Yeah, because we're not actually practical about that at the education level around data science. We're just saying, oh, you get to play with all this data and you get to have loads of fun. And so people come in and their expectations are completely mismanaged about actually the practicality of what they're going to be doing each day.
I have to say, your work seems like really impressive, and you have an extensive background in data science. If I may call you, you could be called a sort of leader, a woman leader in the data science industry, and that's something that's still kind of novel and people are not really used to and kind of pay attention to. Do you have any advice on young women and young girls who want to get into data science industry, how they should approach it, and what is your general opinion of the state of gender equality in the data science industry? Are we paying enough attention to it? Is it something that's kind of okay or not in the data science industry? In my personal opinion, I feel like the data science world, as opposed to the software developer world, is a bit more progressive on this topic. I don't know, do you share the same opinion? Or?
Yeah, really interesting question and thoughts. I think it's a really difficult one, right? Equality across the spectrum in any tech field. I'd say that I'm definitely seeing really positive changes, certainly at the junior level. I think it's about, as you said, like how do we encourage the next set of like women leaders in the space. So I think there's a lot of proactivity, certainly. I see this in the UK all the time, and you know, when I travel around the globe, as I'm fortunate enough to talking at different data science events now, and especially with Data Science Conference, thank you so much. You know, I see a much more diverse gender community than that perhaps there was kind of 6 or 7 years ago, when data science was still very much seen as a computer science part of the data landscape, rather than perhaps the advanced analytics capability that it may be. And to your point around how is, you know, this comparison between software engineering and data science, I'm not a software engineer by trade, so I don't want to speak on behalf of the software engineering field, because I know they have their own challenges and opportunities in the sector. But in data science, I think because that analytical capability that you need does attract a different set of skills. And I think, therefore, there is a comfort for some people that if they're strong at maths and they're strong at problem solving, it enables a progression into a more technical field from perhaps a slightly different background to what is in the software engineering field. I'm a huge proponent that anyone can do anything if they put their minds to it enough. I mean, you do need some skills, right? You do have to go away and learn those skills. But the thing that I feel like, we're starting to change the dialect around, and we're seeing this in the UK, brownies and guides, which is kind of like a scouts type activity for young girls in the UK, are now going to be teaching coding skills. So this means that, you know, in extracurricular time, girls between the sort of ages of 7 to 13 will actually be learning coding, not just in school, but outside of it. And I think, like, changing that perception. For years, you know, the brownies and guides used to teach home baking and, you know, like, and sewing. You know, so when I was at a brownie and a guide, like, my thing was like, how well could you sew and how well could you make a sandwich, and these types of activities. You know, I would have been so delighted if it was coding, but I don't know if I would have, actually, because I used to cry a lot when I used to teach myself to code. So I think it's a really hard industry to break into, because data science still has this kind of, machine learning has this reputation of, oh, you have to be a really good Python developer to do it. You know, you still have to do coding. The reality is that, like, my day job as a leader now, and I have no shame in saying this, is part salesperson, part change manager, part like people leader, right? Those skills, yes, I had to train as a data scientist, and I've been a data scientist for a long time, and I believe that's what makes me hopefully good at what I do today. So I have all the practicality and the experience of having been a data scientist, but a lot of what shapes what I do today are other traits around kind of my communication skills, my problem solving skills. You know, I'm constantly having to think, like, not just at kind of a data science problem solving, but like a business problem. I also got to think a lot about, like, my kind of the econometrics and the finance background I have. Like, what value is this bringing to the business? Like, why should we do this? You know, my actual kind of leadership and kind of people coaching skills, my mentoring skills of the people in my team, bringing up the next range of, like, female role models in our industry. I think the thing that I'm sad about is that there's no one for me to look up to sometimes. I think there's a big shortage of very senior leaders. So for me, if, you know, my next steps, I don't know what they would look like, because there's very few people in my field, because it's still so new. And I think it's about continuing to kind of smash down those doors and say, hey, I can do what I want. Maybe I want to pivot and do a completely career change, or I want to keep pushing and seeing where this can take me. And I think it's just inspiring people that they can do the same. And if they want to try on the data science role for a bit, then why not? Because it's problem solving. Go away and learn those coding skills to be able to make you successful at it. But there are loads of other transferable skills that will make you successful in this role. And I've met some of the best problem solvers with very, very little coding ability in data science, because it's about building good teams and not good individuals, right? So that you can have people that complement each other. So I think data science could be a very diverse field for people to get into. we have to just keep making it more inclusive for people to get into, and make them realize actually there's different variations of roles within that. Like in my presentation, how I talked about there's the change manager, the project manager, the delivery manager, and these are all people that should have some training in data science, but then might take their specialisms elsewhere to make data science successful in their business.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the data science space, as it is new, it has seen this kind of divulging from the IT and the software engineering with data. It has kind of grown apart and started branching out into these different spheres, and now it's, in my opinion, basically on par as software engineering in the sense of complexity and the different diverse roles. So I definitely agree with you that could be the reason why it is attractive to a more diverse crowd. I want to thank you because you've joined us at the Data Science Conference for the first time in 2019, and we've had a very good pleasure with working with you for these past couple of conferences. Could you, as kind of like an outsider to our organization, give us kind of an overview how you saw us 3 years ago and how we've kind of progressed up until now, and your general opinion of kind of working with us and delivering talks in our conference?
Where do I start? I mean, I honestly have a feeling that Data Science Conference is going to literally take over the world. Like, you literally are trying to change the world through data. I think that first conference in 2019, it took my breath away just how incredible the community was in Southeast Europe, and particularly when I was in Belgrade in Serbia, just how supportive everybody is. And I mean, it's a general thing, I think, in the data community anyway, because it's all kind of still, like we said, quite new. And I think the data community does really want to help each other. And you do have very inspiring leaders who really just want to share and be generous with their time. But there is something incredibly special happening in this part of the world, where I think because the tech industry is starting to really, really blossom here, and you've got some incredibly talented people who are really trying to push the boundaries of actually what it is to do machine learning and data science, whilst also having that kind of those principles of sharing and fostering a really healthy community. That I think it just brings everything it's very humbling, right? It's a really exciting place, I think, to do data science. And it's probably as well quite a difficult place, right? Because it's probably like you're kind of going out alone. Like when I got to experience the bird and incubator, the tech incubator here in Croatia on Tuesday, I think everybody's rallying together a little bit, because you're kind of striving out for something here in Croatia around that maybe the rest of the tech community hasn't quite seen before. And I think where I've seen kind of the conference growth, just like I said, you literally are trying to take over the world, and that's brilliant, because I think what you're doing a fantastic narrative of is really showing what a great community the data science space is, but also educating correctly about data science. I think there's something very unique when the conference itself can go and actually be there to help practitioners, rather than, and I mean this in the best way possible, but like sell them the next best technology that's going to help them. There's a place and a great thing for that, but I think what this community is trying to build is literally a safe space for people to share ideas. And I think that's the way that I've seen this particular data science conference grow, is that continue to foster that safe space for sharing of ideas, and to do that at a much more global presence, which is not easy to do. And also to really like make sure that you're getting the best and the brightest talented people coming to share those ideas, to push the boundaries of what data science can do. Because fundamentally, the only way we're going to disrupt our landscape is by continuing to push it. Like the last few days, I've had some incredible talks around AI ethics and what's happening with the AI Act. And I think, like, for me, there's always things to be learning. We can never be, we're never going to be sated. To my presentation earlier, doubt is uncomfortable, right? But certainty is flawed. We're always going to have to push our like the next stage of where we're going. And I think Data Science Conference is one of the leaders in kind of helping to make that happen.
Thank you very much for those kind words. We're really glad that we kind of left this lasting impression on you, and collaborating with you on all of these talks through the years has really been great. You're an amazing kind of addition to this conference, and I want to thank you very much for taking the time to kind of address some of these topics that we've had lined up, and just hope you have fun for the rest of the conference.
Thank you so much. Cheers. Hi, I'm Leanne Fitzpatrick. I'm the Director of Data Science at the Financial Times. Let's change the world through data.